Hello, doctor. I have a question, and it's not a question; it's a feeling. I just I want to know, why does truth intimidating? Is it because it reminds us of death? I'm just curious. Not curious. I just want to know. Thank you.
I cannot answer that question for you. I mean, if you feel that it's intimidating, then so be it. Somebody else may feel something else. It's not surprising there's some degree of trepidation that perhaps arises, but I cannot answer why you feel a certain way.
Then does the truth have?
Hi, Kapil. Thank you for having me. I've been wondering about the pursuit of the truth and how it folds in on itself. If you pursue the truth, then you're an asshole for trying to be the guy that pursues the truth. But even personally, if you pursue the truth, then you're going against what your body does naturally. I guess what I'm asking is there's still always some force that says don't do this, or a really annoying voice. Why does this exist? What is the purpose of that? Everything else in my life seems to be so efficient except for this one voice.
Well, it doesn't really sound like you want to pursue the truth, not that you should, because you seem to be, from your question, you seem to be asking why the other things arise which are annoying you and stopping you from seeking it. You seem to be more interested in that part as opposed to the desire to seek the truth, despite what things may arise. I could be wrong, but that's just what your question seems to suggest.
Well, the difficult part is, and I think that maybe some of the people in the room also relate, is that you have the part of you that realizes the truth, maybe that you're speaking, but it then goes to the idea of whenever you start really subscribing to the idea of truth, going to zero, or I don't know what that means, but I think that a lot of the who cares, just I get my ideas folded in on themselves because the truth seems to be naturally evasive. Why? Why is that? Or is
that's because of your conditioning,
right? But what does that mean?
So what that means is that when you grew up in a particular world, right, which is the world that everybody knows right in front of you, society and so forth, and in that world are various voices and media and print and so forth, notions that you've heard all of your life from the very beginning, and relating to life, relating to, and as you got older, more so-called sophisticated, perhaps in the arena of self-help and spirituality. And maybe you read some books, and maybe you heard some podcasts, and
right.
And over time, all of these things infiltrated you, and therefore that becomes your default setting. So that becomes, and in other parts of your life, it's fine because everyone's playing the same game as you are. Therefore, the language is the same, and so you can make transactions, so to speak, in the same game that everyone plays. But when it comes to something that is not of the world, that goes beyond the world, that the world does not know, that society does not subscribe to, that literally flies in the face so violently against everything that you've ever been taught, you're on your own. And so the only things that you have are the things that you have imbibed for however old you are up until this day. And so when you even approach the truth, it is going to be anti everything, not because the truth wishes to be anti everything, but because everything that you learned was garbage. So if you learned garbage, which is not your fault, but if you've been taught garbage, then that is the truth's fault. But naturally, if you come holding bags of garbage, then the truth is going to be completely opposite of that. Therefore, of course, there's going to be massive resistance. Of course, there's going to be, because then you're being asked to throw away everything you've ever known. And how can you do that?
Can you ask a master carrying bags of garbage how to do, or not how, but like, can you ask them anything? Or do you just have to put down the garbage first before you can even approach the master?
No, you don't really need to put down anything. I think everything is about understanding. I don't think it's about like, give me some teaching, and that's garbage too. So everything that you've heard about spirituality and maybe even masters and maybe, like, I would say from 0 to 100, everything that you know is garbage. And if it isn't 100% garbage, it's 72%. But whatever it is garbage. Therefore, if you come and 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 you ask, somebody who may know a little bit, that you want to learn something, it really is the understanding of what you're coming with, and not that you should demean yourself, and not that you should move against yourself and try to put down the garbage. It really is a mature understanding that, okay, that I've just grown up with garbage and the truth is something else. And so do I want to pursue that or not? And there's no how to pursue. There's no how should I approach. Everything is done. Anything that is serious is done by way of maturity. And maturity does not mean, button up your tie and put on a stern face and be all adult and mature. That has no meaning. That's just form. Maturity means that you understand where you are and you understand that it isn't really your fault that you're here, but you do have an affinity for whatever reason for the truth, if you do, and that there's always somewhere that you must begin.
Hi, Doctor. Thank you for the opportunity for us to ask questions. Why do you think societies cater to the lowest common denominator, and do you think there would be a society that does not?
Why are you asking about society? Who cares about society? I mean, you don't ask about what the color of the nearest sewage plant near your house is. Why are you asking about society? Who cares? Of what relevance? You're going to change society?
Sir, I want to ask a question that I've been very disappointed with my life. Every day there is so much trouble and pain, and I've seen that there is a desire underlying all of it. This is a desire for not wanting to be born, but I think this is a reactive response to the fact that I have not achieved what I wanted to achieve in my life. And every day is very much hard. I just want to know, what understanding does it require for me to see that, what I need to understand to, first of all, what I need to understand to be free from this constant bombardment from my mind. I think mind is standing in between me and what I want to achieve. Thank you.
If you don't have what you want, then you can go get it, however long it takes. If you don't really want it, then you don't have to go get it.
My question is, well, I'm a musician, artist, songwriter, and people are really in the art world. People are all about, they like to talk about influences, like what's your influences and all that. And I think it's maybe 1 out of 20 pieces of music I make sounds like an original piece of music. It sounds like myself and not like anybody else. But then I listened to it back like a week later or a month later, a year later, and I pick apart little things like, this actually sounds like this person, or this actually sounds like this thing. And I'm thinking it may be impossible to create music that's free of the influence of other artists, or impossible to create art that's free of influence of other artists. I was just wondering if you agreed with that.
Well, it could be that what you're most influenced by is the pressure from others who want to know what your influence is.
Hi there. I just wanted to ask, if we don't have enough desire to achieve something, can we do it through induced fear? Is fear a good replacement for desire if the desire is not there? Thank you.
It isn't about asking about rules.
Hi, Kapil. Thanks for doing this tonight. So I wanted to ask you about the concept. I understand this is a concept, but the concept of trauma, and especially within the mind. And the reason I want to ask is because growing up, I had several traumatic experiences as a child, but nowadays things are fine and I thrive living on my own. But I noticed that in my day-to-day, especially when I talk to certain kind of people at work or just in general, sometimes my mind could kind of hijack my reaction to certain triggers. And it feels like almost automatic. And I know after investigation, I realized it's due to some of those traumatic things that happened as a child. And so I wanted to ask you essentially, like, is trauma itself, is this a real thing? Or is this just another concept that I'm kind of being fooled by?
That's a big question to ask if trauma is a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing, and with regard to the fact that you feel the way you feel, and it had an impact, upon the person, and it was, as obviously, negative impact. Is it a real thing? It depends how far you want to take that. Is anything real? So it's that kind of question. That kind of question really only matters if you're asking what is reality then. Because if you're asking is it a real thing, then basically you're subdividing things, and you're saying, okay, well, then I'll allow this part to be real, but then other parts not to be real.
Right.
And so it's not really it. I mean, you can't really say it's not a real thing because unless an individual deeply wants to know, because, and what I mean by that is, unless an individual deeply wants to know the truth about things, that's the only way that that's the only person to whom you can answer this question. Because otherwise, if someone doesn't really want to know the sort of the truth about things, then to say it's not a real thing is to diminish,
right,
and diminish the effect that it had upon.
May I add a bit more context?
I'm not sure if I'm entirely ready for a question yet, but I've tried asking you questions several times, and generally there's no response. But I read your book, Overcoming the World. There's a chapter about school which really spoke to me. You write, where does bullying begin? And where is bullying the most prevalent in schools? This is something that has followed me all my life. I just want to say that it really, what you've written really just kind of, it cuts through parts of my soul which I've experienced in a very horrifying way, societal conditioning. I wish to understand if there is a way to kind of have this not follow me everywhere. It seems like bullying is the most prevalent form of social abuse, and
you were doing fine until you asked, is there a way to do something, and then everything falls apart.
Hi, Kapil. I'm 24, and I've been listening to you and following you for about 5 years now. And over like the last 1 or 2 years or something like that, the thing that's been really insightful and like for the first time in my life, like transformative, is seeing, I guess, like the depths of like my own afflictions and like the holes in my beliefs and like the things that I have taken from the world. And it's like truly had a profound impact on my life. And I found a lot of peace in that. But I guess my question is, in ultimate truth, or like arriving at like where you truly like deeply want to go, is there anything beyond seeing the depths of your afflictions and your beliefs and the problems that you create for yourself? Or is it just seeing all of those? Is it seeing through all of those?
It's a prescriptive question disguised as a non-prescriptive question.
How can I get guidance to my mind from my true self every moment?
How can I get guidance for my mind for my true self?
Now, how can I get guidance? How can my mind get guidance from my true self every moment?
So are you new here?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll tell you this, and you're not going to be ready for the answer. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
The answer is not going to help you at all. In fact, there's a fair possibility. I can't tell what you're going to do. There's a fair possibility you probably never come back. The answer to your question is there's no how. The answer to your question is there is no true self. So the entire sentence is made up of gobbledygook that you have gotten from the world, be it the spiritual community and all the garbage. And not that you need to change that. You don't. You can keep asking that question and swallowing up all that stuff. But I can't answer a question that whose every word is based upon untruth. Not that you tried to make it that way.
Hello. So my name is Avinash. I'm starting college this is my first year, and I'm starting to see after reading your discourses, and I've read your Master's Secret Whispers, I think, from Amazon on my Kindle, and I'm starting to feel like I'm wasting time talking to others, but at the same time, I don't feel like I know exactly what I want. Is there any questions that I should be asking myself?
So then why did you go to college?
Because my parents want me to go to college. I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Okay, no, that's an honest answer, and I respect your answer. So you're going to college, and you're just going to go through, do a bunch of stuff there, whatever college people do. It's all nonsense, like everything else. But even if you don't know what you want to do, then you'd be at home doing nonsense. So it doesn't really matter. It's all nonsense. So everything is nonsense until you know what you want to do. And then when you know what you want to do, then usually you end up doing nonsense too, because then you listen to the world and the so-called experts who tell you that if that's the thing that you want, then you have to do X, Y, and Z, and all the X, Y, Z's are nonsense. So it really is about trying to find out what it is that you want to do. If you have no clue, then you have no clue. But I don't know what you mean by I tried to listen to other people, but what did you say about that? Something is wrong about that?
I meant to say that I talked a lot less than most people socialize. I find myself not wanting to. I don't have any incentive to socialize with others. But again, I really want to get closer to finding out what I want. I just don't know the questions that would help me realize if I want to do something or not, and I want to continue through and work towards greatness with that thing or not.
So why? So where did you get the idea of greatness?
I thought it would be a waste if I'm not working towards something.
And by working towards something, though, you don't really know what you want to work towards.
Yeah, that's the misunderstanding that I have.
Yeah, and it's not really a misunderstanding. It's just where you are. And so, what do you think? What do you think is a way that you find useful that might help you potentially find what you want to do?
I think if there's no concept of time while I'm doing something, that's something that's worthwhile putting.
Okay, and has anything come up that satisfies that?
No, not yet. I feel whenever I'm doing something, I feel like time is going by, and I would like to get rid of that feeling.
Well, good luck with finding what you want to do, but I do respect your honest answers. And if you have, honesty within you, then, there's a fair chance that you'll approach things in a fairly sensible way. Good luck with everything.
Thank you, sir. I love your work.
Thank you.
Phil, I had a question related to your experience in golf, and because I've heard you talk a lot about prescriptions being useful for mechanical things, but then you have with sports, there's a certain threshold. Like I've heard you say before, short game is 95% mental, which I totally agree with. At what point does mechanics separate from the art form?
Well, you can't really define that, right? I mean, I think you know that. I think you can't really say that you're at X point and now it's no longer mechanical. So what is your real question?
Well, I'm just trying to understand the dance. Is it a more or less?
So what's bugging you? What's bugging you?
What's bugging me is I just started getting into golf, like really getting into it, where there's like a real passion there, and there's obviously mechanical issues, and there's this dynamic between mentally thinking about the mechanics versus really focusing on the artistic expression.
Well, in order to not think about the mechanics, then if you're going to hammer a nail, you can hammer the nail once you know how to hold the hammer and move the hammer.
Right. So once you feel confident.
So if you don't know how to move the hammer and hold the hammer, then you can not think all you want. It's you don't know how to move the hammer, right? And so the biggest thing is always with regard to the coaching. That's where all the problems sort of happen. Is not that you should be coached or shouldn't be coached, or it isn't that isn't the question. Really, it is that the lostness happens when, just like the lostness happens with life and mind and everything else, it's always in the accumulation of the jargon.
Right.
And the more you accumulate the jargon, the closer, or the more you potentially become lost. So that's what I'll tell you, is that there's just a lot of jargon in everything, every culture, every subculture. What business are you in?
What business? Personal development and coaching.
Okay. So personal development is a total sham, because it isn't. Because, and I'm not trying to demean you or anything. It's just the entire premise. It's kind of like I'm in the trying to make muddy water clean business. Right. It isn't real. So it's full of just garbage, and business is full of garbage, and sports is full of garbage, and all domains, investing is full of garbage, and finance is and everything is it's all garbage. Garbage is the default. But then it doesn't mean that it can't be done well.
Right.
But the understanding is that no matter what domain or what field you're in, anywhere in the world, it's 0.000000000.01 of it is perhaps not garbage.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to find in everything. And golf is no different, and business is no different. Whatever you put in a search engine and get the 47 million results, it's all 47 million results of garbage. So the rate limiting step as to where you really go in anything is how effectively you can sift through the garbage, and if you have the DNA to actually recognize or to be able to accept, not that you should, that everything is garbage.
Right.
Hello, Dr. Gupta. Um, I'm 23 years old. I'm a student, and I have been consuming your work for about 2 years now. And my current question is, how do I find what aligns with my natural abilities and natural talents? I have.
So if you're following my work for 2 years, you should know that to ask that question is blasphemy, right? I mean, you should know that question is not going to go anywhere. The fact that I'm even giving a response is really charitable.
Hi, Dr. Gupta. When I was young, I really enjoyed other people. And until I was about 13, I really felt like my relationships with other people made sense and that I could understand them. And then in high school and college, I just could not. It was the exact opposite. I couldn't find my bearings, and I couldn't understand how people could be the way they were, or more appropriately, I couldn't understand why I couldn't understand other people. And now the state of the world really bothers me, and the state of humanity really bothers me. And
the state of humanity has never been different. The state of the world has never been different. The world has always been the world. People have always been people. The good and the bad, and the wrong and the right, and the good part of society and the bad. Those are all fabricated notions. The world was never different. It was. You might have some cosmetic differences. You might have some differences in before there was horse and carriages, and now there's, electric cars, and and before they went to bed when the sun went down, and woke up when the rooster crowed. I mean, the people have always been the same. The world will always be the same. It will never change. People are people. The world is the world. It isn't good or bad. It just is what it is.
Hi, Kapil. I've been following your work for the past 3 years, and I can feel a lot of qualitative changes in how I have started to deal with things in general in relationships at home, with my family, with my kids. And for the most part, I feel liberated and light. However, that feeling doesn't last a lot, and especially when dealing with sickness, and it doesn't have to be any major sickness, but even mild sicknesses, I tend to realize that that feeling of general relief is lost. Is that the mind's trick, or are there biological limitations to achieving that relief as a human?
No, there's no limitations.
Namaste, Kapil, and thank you so much for hosting this. I've been examining a lot about the antics of my mind, and I'm trying to understand the concept of self-forgetfulness in anything that I do. And I'm confused about the various things that the mind does. And I don't want to get into definitional games here, but things like paying attention versus being aware versus consciously doing something, and self-forgetfulness. I know that thinking is from the mind, but then I don't know if paying attention or being aware and not get caught by the.
So why does this matter?
I suppose I feel that when I'm, for example, consuming content in the media, I also feel like I'm forgetting myself, but it drains my energy, as opposed to I am doing something like my craft and having a self-forgetful.
So why do you want to pay attention to what happens in the media?
Because it is a waste of my time, which I realize after the fact. I'm trying to do things consciously, but
you're asking about how to more effectively pay attention to the media, which you have recognized is a waste of your time.
I don't necessarily I don't necessarily want to know how to. I am basically observing some of the patterns of.
But if you're watching the media, why do you want to be aware, observant, conscious, whatever your words are at all? Why even if you were asleep, would that be better?
If I'm aware, I'm not falling for the trap of mindlessly consuming content, right? At least I can catch myself doing it.
But aren't you? But aren't you? Aren't you mindlessly? I'm not saying that you are or not. I'm asking, based upon what your own statements are you not just mindlessly consuming content? If you yourself have stated that what you have found in the media is a waste of your time?
Yes,
So then why do you want a more efficient way to do that?
I don't want a efficient way to do that. I just want to catch myself getting into this.
But why do you want to? But I don't understand is why do you want to catch yourself if you said that you have already determined that it is a waste of time? What is there to catch?
It is.
You could catch yourself if you still feel like it's very useful. But if you have already determined that it's a waste of time, what's left to catch?
The habitual patterns of the mind going in that direction.
But why are you going to those lengths of the habitual patterns? If it's a waste of your time, and you speak English, if it's a waste of your time, not because I say.
No, you're right.
Then why I need to catch the habitual patterns of the mind and what like if it's a waste of your time, then so either that was not true, or not that it should be or shouldn't, but either that wasn't true that you don't think it's a waste of time, or that is true.
It is. I do allow myself to indulge in that pleasure chase from time to time, but after the fact, I find that it is a total waste.
And then, so if you indulge yourself, that's fine. In no way am I trying to get you to stop watching the media. I'm not trying to change your behavior I couldn't care less. Okay. I am simply saying that if that is an indulgence for you, it doesn't matter what you want to learn from me with regard to what is awareness versus what is the self-forgetfulness and what it doesn't matter. You're going to continue to indulge in that. So as long as that's happening, then you basically are trying to learn more efficient ways through these words of self-forgetfulness and more awareness and less this and that to watch nonsense. And therefore the question has no relevance. And nothing that I said was my own. Everything was based upon what you told me.
Hi, sir. Thank you for the host. I want to ask you, I watched a lot of your content on YouTube. I want to ask you why you didn't talk about boredom. It's a huge part of our life. Thank you.
No, I believe I have. I don't know where, but I definitely have. And first of all, the content on YouTube, it's not that what I talk about or don't. That wasn't put on YouTube by me. That's been compiled by a bunch of people. So it isn't like I decide to I'm going to talk about this and then put that on YouTube. I think there's only one thing on YouTube that I put from myself. If I just want to be accurate, I think there's only one thing.
Thank you. What is the most effective question you've ever received?
What does it matter? How is this not like a trivial pursuit? How is this going to affect your life? How is this not plain old curiosity, intellectualism, eating a lollipop?
Hi, Dr. Gupta. Thank you. Over the last couple of years, after discovering some truths that I stumbled upon, I built a life that is practically everything that I could want. And there's a lot of people that I look up to who continue to push further and further, and they're driven by this seemingly deep-seated desire for greatness. And I didn't know this until I had just a little bit of success, but I don't seem to have that same seed. What I worry about is if I don't continue to do more, build a bigger, better company, affect more lives, build more wealth, so on. I worry that I'll get to the end of my life and figure out something that I don't know now and think, oh shoot, I wish I would have done more. And I suppose my question is, from someone who's seen more than I have, maybe I'm looking for permission. Is it okay to say, this is enough? I found what I wanted to find. I have what I wanted to have. And discontinue, I guess, the dissatisfaction. And
I don't know. What are you looking for?
To know if it's okay to be satisfied.
I mean, why does that come from somebody else? And you mentioned, affect lives and this and that.
Sure.
What if those things matter to you, then they do. If they don't, then they don't.
And that's the problem, is they don't really matter to me. I mean, in small ways, my family and some people around me, it matters, but largely, very little matters to me. And I guess I'm just worried. I know that there's a lot of things that I don't see. I know that there's a lot.
Well, there's going to be a lot of things that you don't see, no matter what. And it's not a question of number. It isn't a question of volume. It's a question of the things that matter most. Do you see those things or not? It's not a numbers contest. And unless there's a wholehearted, devoted, systematic journey of truth, the chances of you seeing them are, I will never say zero, but
Sure.
practically, I mean, very close to zero. And that's not because it's impossible. That's just because you might find 3 people on the planet, not who are smart enough,
Yeah.
not who are hardworking enough, not who are talented enough, but who really want the truth.
Thanks for taking my question. As a parent of a grown-up child, I face this conflict of like allow her to be independent, try to make her make things on her own. On the other side, I also think that I need to influence some of her career. I need to be part of her success, and how can I make her successful? So
how are you going to make the person successful? Like, are they going in? Are they going? Is that person going into the same line of work as you?
No, it's completely different line.
Okay, and so are you a success in the thing that person wants to go into?
No, I'm not.
So then, how are you going to make them successful in that thing?
Yeah, I agree. But so what happens is there is always a pressure from society and others from family that try to look for opportunities for her, try to see that whether whether there is anything I can find out, or try to help her. Of course, I am not really.
No, and that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Why, if why wouldn't you help if you can help, right? But I don't know. I'm not really sure what your question is.
My question is that I just really don't understand that. Means what is bothering me is that should I really allow her to go as an independent, or is my trying to help her is some way creating a problem for her and kind of damaging.
So imagine a parents who have $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a parents who have $1 billion. Okay. So that, let's say that the parent gave all $1 billion to their kid, right?
Yeah.
So you would say that you can never guarantee anything. There's no 100%. But you can say there's a fair possibility that to be given $1 billion at 16, 17 years old would cause more problems than it would help. Would that be fair? Okay.
Yes.
Not that it might not, in a particular individual it might not. I'm not saying 100%. That's why I choose my words very carefully. I said that there's a fair possibility, perhaps more likely than not, that there'll be more problems than there is help. Okay, so I could dwindle that number down and say, okay, what about 500 million? Do you think that would be too much?
Yeah, even that is too much, I think.
Okay,
yeah.
so then what about 26 million? Is that too much?
Yeah, for a young kid like that.
Okay. So what about 600,000? Is that too much?
No, that may not be. Yeah.
Okay, what about 650?
Yeah, that may be too little. Yeah.
So how about 720?
Yeah, it's kind of, I think, a similar situation. Yeah.
Okay. So you're asking me these ridiculous questions that the reason that you ask them is where the question comes from is understandable. It's understandable, but it hasn't been thought out. And the reason it hasn't been thought out is because when you ask the world these questions, they will say, no, don't do anything. Let the person do it himself. Build your own career. Do it yourself. Okay. And then another expert will say, No, you should help. A child needs guidance. Okay, so you people are given answers to their nonsense questions. Okay, and they're given answers with conviction. So they ask nonsense questions and they're given nonsense answers, and they're all nonsense because nobody can tell that one person might be given all the freedom in the world and might do fantastic. Another person might be given all the freedom in the world and be a total disaster. And then, even beyond that, how can you ever tell that you should give 27.6% freedom, right, to X individual, and this person you should only give 19.4% because the research shows that all the smartest psychologists got in a room and they talked a bunch of crap. And at the end of the day, they came up with a number of 16.7%, and they published it in their idiot psychology journal of 17.6%. That's the new number. This is the problem with these kind of questions. The spirit of the question is understandable. How does one know how much freedom to give and how much? That's a fair question. It's a thing that every human being struggles with, and it has no answer. Therefore, all there is sincerity. All there is trial and error. All one can move forward with is the fact that he doesn't know, rather than asking them outright and then trying to be given an answer in the same way that you gave me an answer, that you got fed up that between 650 and 720, and you couldn't even figure out how much money is too much, and that'll cause the child to be spoiled, and how much is too little, and that'll cause the child to starve. There's your answer.
So I've been on this journey for a while. I mean, everyone is, but there are certain truths that I've realized in my life, and somehow like the fears have reduced, and I see how emotionally I've gotten rid of things, but somehow the suffering never seems to go away, and for some reason it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And the worst part about all of it, I feel, is that the other people around me, like, maybe they haven't realized the truths about their life, or I don't know, it just seems like everyone else gets smarter, or I just feel like I don't exactly belong, right? So and in that manner, I don't know why.
So belong to what?
Belong to how things function, like how it's so easy for people to just be in the world, and how it's so easy for them to like navigate through situations. And yeah, maybe.
Who do you find that so easily navigates through situations in the world?
I don't know, maybe they have something that they hold on to in their life, like maybe.
So do you live with them?
I mean, just people around me, like everyone, like every single person.
Yeah, so every single person. Do you live with every single person?
No.
Do you go to their house?
No.
Do you know what they do day and night?
I mean, I can understand that they are suffering. They have their own suffering to deal with, but they have things to look forward to. They have things in this life that they are hopeful about, and something they strive to be, or they have.
If you were to ask them that they looked forward to 100 things in the past, they would tell you the things they looked forward to, right?
Yeah.
And then they're looking forward to more things.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what? So then those
they
they're
have
looking forward to now are going to be the 100 things in the past in a month.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of aliens you're talking about.
But they fit into the world, right?
Well, it depends what you mean by the world in terms of
society.
how they fit in. So yes, so they fit in. Like you mean physically they fit into the world? Who is not a part of the world?